I am Jennifer Deswaner, and I'm one of the owners at Borshoff for women who are owners, and we are excited to have this. We rotate who hosts these depending on what the topic is. And today we are fortunate to be joined by two outstanding guests. The first I will introduce is Tamara Cypress. She is a CSR consultant and Black Onyx Management. Tamara is a visual storyteller, strategist, and change agent. She has 17 years of experience in 5 diverse industries, leading corporate change innovation, employee messaging and engagement, and integrated marketing and communications campaigns. She serves on several boards and committees, including the Board of Steward Speakers, the co-host of First Generation Wealth Builders Storytelling Series, which is part of United Way's Diversity Leadership Circle. She is a creator and host of the weekly podcast, The 317 Experience, with The Exchange of the Indianapolis Urban League. She's a founding member and communications chair of the African American Legacy Fund of Indianapolis, and recently joined Downtown Indy's Recovery Committee, which is what we're going to talk about today. So Tamara launched Indy Black Businesses Matter to help promote and advocate for Black businesses through storytelling and networking. She created the concept of Indy Accomplishship, and she's going to tell us more about that. Tamara has her MBA from Purdue and her bachelor's in business marketing from Susquehanna University. Also with us is Bob Schultz. Bob is the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Events for Downtown Indy, Inc., a civic nonprofit focused on enhancing and advancing downtown Indianapolis. He is responsible for the organization's efforts to position downtown as the best place to live, learn, work, and visit. Prior to joining Downtown Indy, Bob was with Borshoff, that's right. And before that, he had a 10-year run serving with Visit Indy as its primary marketing communications director. He's also an adjunct professor at Butler, and he and his wife Diane have 3 kids and are lifelong Indy residents. Thank you, Tamara and Bob, so much for being with us this morning. And we're going to open up our time with a bit of an overview of the topic. You were both working on exciting, important, and challenging things to improve our community before the pandemic hit. And suddenly what you're doing is becoming more important and more challenging than ever. Tamara, could you start by telling us about Black Businesses Matter, please?
Absolutely, and thank you for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to talk about 2 key programs that I created. Black Businesses Matter. It is a free campaign all about supporting smaller Black businesses. And thank you for putting up the logo. I like to pause here. If you can see, it is bright, it's bold, it merges the heart and also a unity fist. And by design, the heart's at the center of this because we want people to know that your heart needs to be front and center for us to really reach and change and make equitable change in this city. So this is a logo, but it's supposed to be a little bit more than that. It represents a love fist and the head, heart, and campaign that really is needed for us to move forward. And then also it is surrounded by 4 arcs that duly represent Monument Circle, but also the 4 pillars of the second campaign that I'm going to talk about. So Black Businesses Matter, I said, is a free campaign focused on supporting Black businesses. We have been really following the data that suggests about 41% of Black businesses have been permanently impacted since COVID. And we wanted to do a small part in helping small businesses with storytelling and networking. So you'll see that there's a lot of pieces, at least in the last couple months, there's people working on websites and directories, which are fantastic. This is not touching any of that type of work. We're really honing in on personalizing the business with storytelling and helping them with their networking. So you saw the bright logo. For those that do have social media, website, and email, they can automatically add it to their platforms as a self-identifier as a Black business. Also, those that have brick and mortar have the opportunity to use that window cling to put on their business also as a self-identifier as a Black business. But really the heart of this campaign is the storytelling series. And we're working in partnership with the Indy Recorder to give them a personal vlog or visual profile that the Recorder is promoting every Tuesday. And then also they get to host an episode of the 317 Experience, which is a podcast with the Exchange at the Indianapolis Urban League that has happened to be hosting. Those two small pieces, they're not meant to solve the world, but they're giving them two opportunities to promote their businesses in ways that they weren't thinking about before. As we continue to listen to these businesses, and if you could put the stat slide on, please, we're learning more about them as well. We're learning that 58% of them need social media support. We heard that 43% of them need website support. We learned that 42% of them are not registered with the city or state, and over 40% of them have been in business less than 2 years. Most of them are sole proprietors. So if you could think of any small business, but also our small Black businesses, marketing is not a top priority for them. They are the owner, they're the CEO, CFO, the marketer, and wearing every single hat to make sure that their business thrives. So we also wanted to make sure that we're listening. And in addition to the marketing campaign that we're doing, we also kicked off a storytell or a networking series with them. So every month we're introducing them to leaders throughout the city who want to help their business grow. So last month, Angela Smith-Jones, our deputy mayor, kicked off and talked about economic development and things that they need to do to think about how do you turn this not into a hobby, but really change your business model to be a full-time business. And then next week, we have Carolyn Mosby with Mid-State Minority Development Council, who's going to talk to them about the value of being registered based on what their goals are in their business, and also connect them with corporations that have supplier diversity programs. So we're continuing to learn as we get to meet our businesses, tell their stories through these podcasts and profiles, and really help connect them with people and resources to fill the gaps in their business. And our goal is to continue to do this. So if you could see the bottom of the slide, we have 80 Black businesses that have signed up since July 1. In 3 weeks, we're going to open it up again for more Black businesses to sign up. And our goal is to really tell you this story and introduce you to 250 Black businesses through Q1 of next year. The next program, so Black Businesses Matter, if you kind of think all about supporting Black businesses, we also wanted to think about corporations as well. So if you think about you or your company probably wrote a statement 6 to 10 weeks ago to stand in solidarity with the Black community. Now what? We wanted to really help organizations through this journey. And if you could put the next slide up for Indy Accomplish It. Same heart logo, really our heart needs to be front and center, but really want to pivot to how can we get 100 corporations to move from allies to accomplice. And I want to pause here and say accomplice is not a bad term, because you're really just moving things forward. In simplistic terms, if you could think of allies make statements, accomplices take action. As an ally, you're really disrupting the status quo. As an accomplice, it's really moving along your allyship journey. It's also an ongoing commitment. So as an accomplice, it's not one and done. It requires listening. It requires humility. It requires putting your ego aside. It does require risk. It also takes tough skin. It takes seeking to understand. And a key piece that I always like to say, and it's something I'm doing myself, it takes learning and unlearning of some things. So if you can really think about accomplice, and what we're asking you and corporations to do is to sign this pledge to be an accomplice. And if you could go to the final slide. Indy Accomplishment is essentially a 4-part pledge that feels like D&I, but it's really, I firmly believe that diversity and inclusion is a corporate responsibility. So it's the infusion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It has CSR elements, it has marketing elements, and it's really breaking down the silos in your corporation to make sure that you are helping in these 4 key areas. So it's really touching the workplace, the workforce, the marketplace, and the community. And just to give you a little flavor of how we're defining this, the workplace is ensuring that there's a healthy environment for your existing employees. We'll be measuring things like implicit bias training. I've been doing work in corporate America for 17 years. Companies that have been doing it well started their D&I journey probably in 2017, trained all of their C-suite and all the minorities, and it dies at middle management. We want to hold companies accountable for getting implicit bias training done throughout their entire organization, but more importantly, the actions that happen after that training. We'll also be looking at how many Black employees are currently employed, what level they're at, and we'll be administering a satisfaction or engagement survey to see how they feel they are being treated. Pivoting from the workplace to the workforce, that's a little nuance of how are you building this diverse talent pipeline for the future. So we're very cognizant that companies may not be hiring in 2020 because it's a new world, but there's no excuse that we couldn't take this opportunity to look at our policies and procedures. So the workforce is really, how are you revisiting how you talk to your hiring managers and your organization so that you are set up for a more diverse workforce. Also, we will be looking at how many new hires you'll have, and depending on your company, director level or higher. What type of organization or job fairs are you going? It's not intended to be a numbers game to say, hey, we went to a Black job fair, but we really want to change the conversation that Black people are no longer part of the interview process and competitive. Leaving the people to go to the money, the marketplace is important. And we'll be looking at how you're investing supplier diversity and you're marketing your services and products to a diverse client. If you look at the numbers, depending on if you do city work, the numbers are pretty low for Black prime contractors. We see that a lot of Black businesses are seen as subcontractors, which means they get a percentage of the pie. We want to show and change that trajectory that Black businesses are fully capable to own their own business and get more than just a leftover percentage. We'll also be looking at the marketing piece. So as I said earlier, it's not just diversity and inclusion. You will have to tap on your marketing person, your HR person, your supplier diversity or supply chain person to really help make sure that we're doing the equitable things that we need to do inside of our companies and to help the city. And this is the connection to Black Businesses Matter. Our goal is to introduce the Black businesses that we meet from Black Businesses Matter and do some one-on-one direct connections to corporations that sign up for Indy Accomplishment. And then the finer pillar is community. This is where a lot of organizations spend a lot of their time, but we'd like to redefine success in terms of being a good corporate citizen through your leadership, money, and time. And a key piece that we'll be looking here is who are those non-people of color that will be helping and advising Black organizations. So through the workforce, we're looking at what types or who in the Black community are serving on corporate boards. But we also want to know, honestly, are there white people serving as advisors to Black organizations? And what this means is if there's a CFO or an accountant or an executive leader in a corporation, there's power in them going back to a Black organization and volunteering with those CFOs, accountants, and their marketing people as well. There's value in the money that they can provide, checks that they can cut, mountains that they can move, and doors that they can open that we just can't do for ourselves. And we'll also be looking at money and time spent volunteering with Black organizations. So that's a snapshot of Indy Accompliship, the 4 pillars that we'll be focusing on. It is a consulting piece that we're working on with Black Onyx Management that is a public benefit corporation, which means that we have designated the Black and minority community as a piece of how we want to give back, where we will be investing our time and money and our social capital. And honestly, I just would love for everyone on the call to consider being an accomplice and taking the pledge.
Thank you. Megan's going to put some links in the chat too on how to find this online. And Tamara, can you briefly speak to the idea that this is not punitive, that this is really helping organizations move from wherever they are and not a judging of where they are now and getting to a better place, not just to, a particular, not all metrics will be the same for all organizations, but how that works.
Absolutely, and thanks for bringing that up. This is absolutely a positive campaign. We want to push companies out of their comfort zone, and we will demand excellence. However, we're not going to let you fall through a hole. You will sign an NDA with Black Onyx Management when you decide to be an accomplice. And when we collect this data, this is a public campaign, but we will not share any of your data publicly. We will share data only with you and your organization so that you can do better. We are encouraging 100 corporations of all sizes and industries to sign up no matter where you are. So if you feel like you're in step 1 of this journey and some of those stats and the pillars that I just showed you are kind of scare you, good. This is the perfect time for you to join, and we would implore you to sign up and really think, what do you want to accomplish? So we will hold you accountable for trying to do something in each of the 4 areas, but there's no reason that you have to be perfect in all 4 areas. We have check-ins that we'll do. We will like to see progress a year from now, but what we really want to do is get started. And our goal is to not have the same conversation a year from today that we're having right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we'll get back to more of that as well. Bob, I think a lot of us, we think we know what Downtown Indy is. We think we know what Downtown Indy Inc. is, but you also have, Downtown Indy has a new recovery committee. And tell us about that, how it's going, and you have some announcements coming up as well, I believe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer, and my colleagues and friends at Borshoff. What a great public service this Shoff Chat is for our community, and thank you for hosting us today. Tamara, thank you for your leadership on our downtown recovery efforts. We knew when things were getting serious in our community that we needed voices and faces and individuals who could lead us through and step with us in journeys that we aren't always proud of our past in the ways we've included our Black brothers and sisters and professionals in our community. So we knew when the downtown was in crisis, and that started, as you know, most of you remember March, the month of March, when we were all getting ready to go to basketball tournaments and schedule graduation parties and invite our friends to the race. So downtown went into crisis as the rest of the world was unfolding, and it became a ghost town, as every other major community has and did. As that recovery was starting to rebound, at least people were starting to come back to work in a slow process, we were met with a weekend of severe violence in our downtown. Violence that was not intended by those who were initiating protests and awareness of challenges in our community and in our country. But it nonetheless became the focus of that weekend, and the damage on downtown has never been greater. This organization was formed as a private nonprofit to build up downtown when a few of us on this call will remember a hole in the ground, which is now called Circle Center. And downtown was coming out of this Rust Belt mentality, and downtown needed to have this organization that kept its foot on the gas pedal, went to bed every night, woke up every morning thinking, how can downtown work better as a economic engine that fuels the city and therefore the state. So when the COVID grip was at its greatest and the damage was assessed following that first weekend and only weekend, fortunately, of civil unrest that led to some bad apples in our community responding with destruction, we knew we needed to respond. And oftentimes you hear about you never let a good crisis go to waste. And we would never suggest that we have benefited from any of these crises, but what we've said is we can do better as we rebuild. And that's what has led to this conversation that has linked us to Tamara and the Black Business Matters focus, is that as we start to recover and reset, we need to accelerate efforts around inclusion, diversity, and social equity. And that's going to make our recovery stronger. So that's what began in the first couple weeks of June as we started assessing, talking, forming the concept of a downtown recovery committee with membership of our board, with community leaders, including Tamara, the mayor's office, city county council, businesses large and small, Colts and Pacers, as well as Black-owned businesses, Mamadou, who runs J. Benzal, on Ohio Street. We got to be a part of this. Lead us. Let's get together and share ideas. The first meeting of that committee was an executive team right in June. We were moving quickly, and then the first full meeting was early July. We set in place a mission to reopen downtown, to reopen as a diverse, inclusive, economically vibrant community, all of which we believe in, but we were accelerated by this need and this urgency. Consider this. On any given day, pre-COVID, 155,000 people would come to work in downtown. Currently, about 20,000 do. Currently, not just back in April, now in August. And so consider this. We would normally have an occupancy rate at hotels throughout our community. And I know Diane Witzett's on board. She could give you the quotes and the stats greatest. We went from a 70% capacity or occupancy down to 7%, maybe even 5%. And some good news is happening now, where actually in the last couple of few weeks, we've been able to host some tournaments. And I say we collectively in partnership with obviously Visit Indy and the Convention Center and the CIB. Indianapolis was third in the nation in occupancy in the last three weeks. Number 3 in the nation. I think New York might have beat us. So there is starting to be good news, but visitors, people come down to go to sporting events, not happening, except our great Indy 11. We love that fact that they're operating in Lucas Oil Stadium. Our Pacers and our Fever are remote, no baseball. Our theaters are closed. You all know the stats and the data. The Downtown Recovery Committee came in and said, we got to get those boards down. We have to demonstrate that we're open for business. We have to start addressing safety and security in a different way in a COVID world. So we think about what people normally think of as our homeless community. Those are unhoused. And their situations of being able to go to shelters was impacted by COVID. So we wanted to focus on this particular of how can we develop plans to reinvigorate our community, to build marketing efforts as the slide shows. The next slide talks, and I've already referenced the desire to increase our number of Black-owned businesses and create the avenue that's going to reduce those barriers. This is going to be long-term. Some of this is immediate. Some of this, as Tamara has stated, is going to be take more than just a quick lip service to it. Our focus here, as I mentioned, is our homeless community. The Downtown Recovery Committee is very aware that nobody wants to be homeless. Downtown Indy knows this. Yet the answer really is housing, permanent supportive housing. And so as we get and step through this, we have to address what I would refer to as some of the bad apples who are preying on the homeless, who are preying on those who are vulnerable in our community, and are coming down and trying to sell them cheap drugs. Spice is unfortunately the drug of choice. And you see people who are passed out in downtown because there's not, the ability to respond to that immediately because the shelters are closed and are limited in access. Since then, the mayor has and the city has identified nearly $10 million that has already been announced and for rapid rehousing. They have identified a hotel that those who are in need of accommodation primarily because of their health and wellness are being put in. And so that's moving forward. Meanwhile, we have to address this public safety misrepresentation. And that's what today's announcement, some of you have seen some social media chatter. We are so pleased that the downtown recovery efforts are going to partner with the mayor and announce in about 2 hours. So you heard it here first, the first tranche of money that will be coming into our downtown recovery efforts. And that money is $750,000 focused on safety ambassadors, increased safety patrols in hotspots downtown, and a camera network system that's called B-Link. Some of you are familiar with B-Link, but it basically takes perimeter cameras, adds them to a cloud feature that IMPD can monitor when there is a crime underway and identify direction of pursuit and vehicle identification and things like this. This is going to create a safety net around our downtown to address some of this real as well as perceived concerns about safety and addressing some of those crimes that we referenced. Additionally, our focus is about reclaiming the cleanest downtown in the nation. So the next slide recommits to that. We've all known, those of us grew up here, we know how clean and vibrant downtown is. And so our efforts are going to expand our cleaning. We're going, in the next couple of weeks, actually in the next couple of hours probably, we will be announcing what we're calling the kind of the C-suite shuffle. Don't quote me on that. But this is where board members of all of our civic nonprofits from Visit Indy, Downtown Indy, Sports Corp, Arts Council, Chamber are going to come into downtown and walk these streets. Because again, remember that 155,000 people who aren't coming back to work immediately, which we understand. How can we motivate a measured response and a measured re-employment of our downtown workforce into the community of downtown? Think of the ecosystem that is in place, that is driven by visitors, driven by that workforce, that is just sitting somewhat idle. We've seen some great efforts on Mass Ave with outdoor dining. It's going to get colder before the virus releases its grip. How can we be supporting these downtown businesses, restaurants, retailers, attractions that are open so that when we all return, and we will all return, and soon, when I say soon, it's not tomorrow clearly, but how can downtown be ready to present itself as the greatest city in the country? This isn't a mantra that is pie in the sky. We have been there and we will be there again. And so this is what the Downtown Recovery Committee's efforts are doing. This is what Downtown Indy and our board leadership and our small but mighty team are doing in great partnership with our other civic leaders as we move forward, creating new events, putting our toe in the water. Tomorrow we will have our first organized event, public event out on the Circle with an arts market on the Circle, inviting artists and artisans to come down, present their wares, and in a COVID-friendly process endorsed by the Marion County Health Department, slowly move people through these one way, this way, respecting social distancing and mask wearing, but give people a sense that it's okay to come out and engage in your community. do so before or after a meal at one of our downtown restaurants. Stop by a downtown retailer. There'll be sidewalk sales this weekend on Mass Ave. So you can kind of get this sense of, let's get this engine fired up again, and understandably with caution, and specifically with inclusion as a driving force behind so many of the actions we're taking. So I'll pause right now. That's a lot of activity. We will be with the mayor at 11 o'clock for that news announcement, press announcement regarding that first round of funding coming to us.
Thank you, and we appreciate your being here this morning before on such a busy day. I know you and Tamara both have crazy days today. Very quickly, what time is the arts market on the Circle?
Thank you. 4 to 8 p.m. on the Southwest Quadrant. Be about 20 booths. We'll be partnering with the Arts Council and kind of this whole focus on Welcome Race fans. Their artwork as well will be available there. We're pleased it is a good, diverse group. I mean, think about Penrod, Broad Ripple Art Fair, Talbot Street. None of those happened. And this isn't going to replace all that. We have to start small. We have to, again, I use the term with my team, let's put our toe in the water. Let's do so and test and invest. And so we can start to build something up. And again, I doubt we'll see a circle of lights that will draw 100,000 people this year. We have to rethink our events and then introduce new events.
Thank you. Remember, you can put questions in the chat if you'd like, or raise your hand and we can get those as well. Question for you both. You are both working on things that keep you extremely busy during the day, but you're also accomplishing or trying to accomplish things that are quite a bit in the future. You are playing a long game for everything that you're both trying to do. Tamara, what is it that excites you more? Is it the day-to-day, what you get up and have these conversations with businesses who haven't considered doing what you're offering, or is it that downfield vision where you think we're all headed?
Both. So to me, it's always a both and. So the reason I love like the daily or small quick wins, any transformation needs that. So I love how Bob says that, put your toe in the water and get started. We can't wait. So if you're waiting for perfection, you're not going to get started. So I think it's really important for, depending on how your brain thinks, really break down some low-hanging fruit or some small wins that you can do each day. But as a strategic thinker and someone that's thinking of lasting change, it's also the long term that gets me excited as well. When I think of Indy Accomplishment, when we reach our goal, our first goal is to get 100 companies to sign up. But those 4 pillars don't mean anything without 100 companies working in tandem and doing what they can from where they lead from where they sit. So it's really important for us to think of things that we can do right now, but also think in the long term of how we want to continue to do better, because this time next year, like, we also want to keep elevating the bar and hold this really high standard for all of us to do better. So it's both for me, the short game, but also the long-term piece, so that we can all see those equitable changes that we want.
All right, Bob?
Jen, I would thank you for that question. I would say, and I am a firm believer that hope is stronger than fear. And so when we operate out of a position of hope, we are much more proactive. We are much more focused on an abundance mentality. And that's what drives me, is this sense of hope. I often say also that the mind accepts what is bombarded with. So when you think about that, if all we're hearing about downtown is that it's being chipped away, that it's doom and gloom, that it's boarded up buildings, and trust me, 90% of the people who came to last month's Indy Ultimate race, there were 1,500 people that attended that event. Beautiful event. 90% of them had not been to downtown since February or March or before. So what are they getting their images from? It was that doom and gloom for a while. So we're going to change that narrative. That is an immediate as well as a long-term gain. And we have to chip away the people I'm speaking with now, the people that will be part of this press conference later. This is our charge. Let's change the narrative. If anyone can do it, it's the faces I'm looking at now.
Thank you. Question that showed up in the chat, and a question about the safety pieces of it specifically. As an employer located in downtown, a question about safety concerns that have been very real for employees since March. You've already addressed, you've acknowledged that. But what's the sense of, where the safety ambassadors be empowered to provide assistance to employees, or how does all of that work? And I guess it's both now and as you continue to work through it, how will that work?
Right, absolutely. So this today's announcement, first of all, safety is more than just a perception. It is a reality. There are times that unfortunately there are crimes being committed in downtown. It still statistically is the safest district in the county, but when crimes occur, they're very high profile, and we all feel we are connected to downtown. So we can picture the city market. We can picture the canal. It's hard for some of us to picture 38th and Guilford when crimes happen, which are all bad in other parts of our city. There's no good that comes from that. Downtown, our focus, because of that returning workforce, is about increasing foot and bike patrols. Downtown Indy has a program to hire off-duty officers to supplement in high pedestrian kind of intensive areas. We're going to be able to quadruple that coverage immediately because of this funding. So you think these are individuals with arresting powers, and we will be able to distribute or deploy them in partnership with IMPD. We're also launching some of you who have come downtown, you've seen our street ambassadors. It's an additional cleaning element. They clean the sidewalks, power wash problem areas. They've been removing graffiti that happens not only more recently, but it happens every summer. We're going to introduce another team called Street Ambassadors, Safety Ambassadors. These are hired citizens who will be walking the streets with an extra ear and eye, with information for visitors, for patrons. Where's the public restroom? Where's this? Where's that? But then also be launched quickly through a radio to IMPD when they see something escalating. This will be in partnership. We'll also be hiring some IMPD cadets to fund this new initiative. This is brand new. And then that camera network that is going to be in place, which is going to be a deterrent, but also a quick response when crime does occur. These are quick elements. Obviously, IMPD has its hands full with the entire community, but we are working in partnership with the narcotics unit, the homeless unit, and obviously the downtown district to make sure this is in partnership and collaboration. And Chief Barker and Commander of the downtown district as well are all lockstep with us in this effort.
I'm going to combine a couple of these questions because I think they could be related. Are we seeing or monitoring any innovative ideas from other cities about how they're recovering, since this truly is obviously a worldwide pandemic? And also, how does that connect with, or what's being done to help businesses stay open as winter is approaching? Because I think we're all right. You alluded to it already, but I am eating outside 3 meals a day, I believe now. And what's that going to look like? Although I do think a run on patio heaters is the next, predicted thing. So
get your own for your home.
Exactly. But question about other major cities, what they're doing, how we're modeling that, and then how businesses can stay open in the next seasons.
Thank you. I'll quickly. So in the modeling, what we're learning is this downtown recovery network that we've created is actually becoming a best practice across the nation. It's being looked at. I'm not saying, I wish everyone had a thing in place like that. There's 2 points to this, one of which is it was so reactive and quick response and intentional in this post-COVID, weekend of destruction that kind of paused COVID recovery, and now we're back on focus with that recovery. What we're hearing is, well, there are other cities, I'll use San Jose as an example, that are doing a much better job than we are on supporting businesses through gift card programs. and encouraging buy now, spend later. So if out of 155,000 workers, you're coming downtown, thank you, Jen, others are coming downtown, but eventually everyone will. So buy those gift cards now and spend them later. The infusion of cash, we want that same downtown to return to. We've unfortunately seen closures from Studio 2000 to Morton Steakhouse to Pairings and not Hard Rock, that was already closed, Rock Bottom, some of these other restaurants that have become fan favorites. So we're looking at other cities on how they do that. You got to remember, we're the largest U.S. city without an economic improvement district in place, where the private sector are contributing to these areas around safety, cleaning, homeless outreach, and elements. So we're kind of creating this mini EID in the midst of all of this and demonstrating proof of concept that when we get through this, a combination of city funding as well as private funding is what's going to sustain us moving forward. Restaurants, we got to keep supporting them. And again, I encourage you, downtownindy.org. We have all the restaurants that are offering gift cards you can purchase them right off their website. And we appreciate, I'll use Mr. Ursay as an example. Some of you saw on Twitter last week, he's drawing 75 people out of a retweet campaign and is going to give them $250 in restaurant gift cards with downtown restaurants. It's his own stimulus effort to encourage support of our downtown retailers and restaurants.
Thank you. Building on that, I think, Tamara, a question about, as we all want to do something. I think people are on this call because the question we all have is, what can we do? And as a downtown business, we want to do more, and at the same time working remotely is what a lot of us are doing now. On this call, we have people from small businesses like ours up through much larger businesses and all private public sectors. What would you say, what can we do, Tamara, to help realize your vision and to really, different from that though, help each of us be a part of solving some of this for all members of our community? In other words, our own businesses can get better when we partner with other businesses and diversify ourselves.
Absolutely. So I would say very tactically, use your expertise and skills to give back. So one thing that I feel like, and we're all feeling, and I feel it as well, so you're not alone if you feel maybe overwhelmed with what can I do. And the best thing that you can do, if you guys can humor me, get out a piece of paper. You have a Rocket Book or tablet or Post-it, or use your phone if you're not a paper person, and write on that piece of paper your number one strength. I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. And this is your strength. You don't have to say, oh, well, I do X at my job. We can get to that, but just really make it personal, because the ask that I'm going to give you is going to be something that you can execute. So what is your number one strength? And take that, and I really challenge you to think through how you can build relationships with Black businesses, small businesses, or people around you to do better. So skills-based volunteering is sometimes underestimated. And if we can lead from where we sit and do the things that we can control, we can all make a bigger difference. If we're worried about what big corporations can do, mid-sized companies can do, the government can do, we're never going to get anywhere. But if you start with yourself, your number one skill, so mine is storytelling. So this is why that passion project for Black Businesses Matter started for me. It is purely me volunteering my time and wanting to support that. I'm not getting paid for Black Businesses Matter. And it's okay. I want to invest my social capital and investments in that piece. I see myself as a visual storyteller. I love marketing. I love communications. I sit on all those boards that Jen was so nice to rattle off, have relationships with the Recorder and the Urban League. Those were easy ways for me to give back from where I sit. Creating profiles, hosting podcasts, those are things that I was wanting to do. If you go back and think through, I shared with you that some of these businesses need social media support. They need website support. We also learned they need legal support. They are looking for coaches. So if you think through those 80 businesses, I really feel for them. They're like, no one's ever mentored me. And I'm not talking about someone like that just had a coffee with them. Like, think through like people who've invested time in you. So if you can think through how you can do that, how you can use your marketing skills, your HR skills, maybe you're a whiz with numbers. I don't know what you put down, but whatever your skill is, figure out one person that you can build a relationship with and give back. That's a way to kind of take that overwhelming piece of trying to solve all the world's problems and doing it very tactically with something that you can control. That would be my one recommendation. And then if you want to take it further, what can your company do? So if your company is a financial company or your company does do HR, think through those pillars. Are you doing the best to build up the right talent pipeline for your company or other companies and setting people up for success? Those are things that you can think of from a skills-based or volunteer-based way of volunteering.
Excellent. Bob, anything on what can we do? And a question that's in the chat, I want to add to that because I think you both, as part of Downtown Indy Recovery Committee, but plans to specifically foster a downtown that reflects the cultural mix that Indy really is.
Well, proof point one is Tamara being on our leadership board for the recovery, and others who are bringing to us a sense of awareness and a path. Oftentimes we just kind of spin, those of us who are white kind of spin. And, somebody, well, I know who, I'm not going to say her name though, told me something very telling right after we were in the middle of this civil unrest. And she is Black, and she said to me, don't be afraid to say the word Black. Too many white people are afraid to say the word Black. They think that's differentiating. And I say it openly because I'm not that. And she also said, when you say the words, what can I do to help? That puts the onus back on them or whoever you're talking to come up with an answer. And that's difficult. So we should say, here's what I plan to do. Does that fit into what you're talking about? And take a little bit more proactive stance as opposed to say, I'm here to help. What can I do? And so that would be something I would encourage folks to position themselves as we build that downtown, build our community, is bring to the table ideas. We're quick to sign up to become an accomplice in this Black Business Matters conversation, because we got work to do. We've all strived to add racial equity in a lot of our boards and our activities, but we don't always know the paths. And thank goodness that Tamara and Black Onyx and others are helping us kind of find that path as we build these plans and equitable responses to way we go. And I'm a firm believer, if we're not busy being born, you're busy dying. So what are you doing to build up? What are you doing as opposed to tearing down? There's a group that I belong to as far as a social media group called Save the Circle. Maybe some of you are on Save the Circle. I guarantee you some of the people on that group are not about saving the circle. They're about showing how bad the circle is. I don't have time for that. I ain't got no time for that. Okay, so let's build up. Have 3 meals a day downtown. Thank you, Jen. Be kind to one another, as Tamara has challenged us, and then also when you do encounter a homeless individual and an unhoused individual, someone who is experiencing homelessness, that could be us. Okay, if there's anything this economy is kind of shaken us about, is that any of us could be that at some point in our life, and nobody wants to be that. And know they're human. Be kind to them. If you feed them, which we encourage you not necessarily to do, direct them to services where they're going to be wraparound services, but clean up after those. We're actually going to introduce some work with our city council to introduce legislation that that requires a cleanup plan for churches that come in and create mass feedings of our homeless community. Well intended, but it creates greater problems and a dependency on that when we want to really direct them to wraparound services. So, I mean, I'm kind of all over the place, Jen. It's probably not surprising you, but in an area to focus, it comes down to that positivity. That's my word, Tamara. And so I will, I'll instill that and work to be a good storyteller like Tamara.
Excellent. I think also that while we're focused on downtown with a lot of this conversation, and it's an area of concern, but there are Black-owned businesses all over central Indiana and all over the area. And a lot of the businesses on this call are located all over. And yet, you know, we know that downtown, as you're saying, has been, you know, really hit hard with a lot of things. And I think in conversations I'm hearing, a lot of people are underestimating. They're sort of making a confluence where really COVID is what, you know, made it from 155,000 to 20,000 people downtown. There were other issues that obviously came after that, but just that idea of, yeah, we're not going to be out of that anytime soon, but there are things that we could do.
You know, and I would just add, you know, COVID is the enemy that we all can point to. We don't need to point to each other. We don't need to point to the 25th floor. We don't need to public safety professionals. Let's all recognize the true culprit in the community right now is COVID. Be safe, but be kind. And we need a little more of that kindness in our day, and not be so quick to accuse, and we'll find our path.
Mm-hmm. I happened to do a ride along with an IMPD officer in February before, you know, we knew, of course, what the world would hold. And we were doing a drive around downtown, and he knew every homeless person by name, and knew that, you know, they really keep an eye on them and on other people. And they said when they get calls from people who are scared of them, they're saying, really just cross to the other side of the street. Like, we really do have this more under control than sometimes it looks like. But I do realize, yeah, when you're downtown, things can be scary, and at the same time they can be so uplifting. We went to an Indy 11 game. I was telling Bob, we went out for dinner before, we went out for drinks after, and it was just fabulous. And realize that not all places are coming back equally, but a lot of places are looking really good. Question, Tamara, in the chat as a personal passion project. Kelly writes stories about ordinary women doing extraordinary things, and would love to connect with you. So we're going to make that connection after that, because yes.
Thank you. I was writing down the information right now.
Good. I don't know if you call yourself a badass, but you know, that's where we are with this. That's what Kelly writes about, and we would agree. So another question, just in terms of, you both work in areas that you take a lot of criticism. You know, there's a lot of, as you said, you can focus on the negativity. And what is it that gets you through that and to that next place of where you want to get people? And Tamara, when people come either saying, I'm not getting, you know, what I need, but they're dealing with criticism inside and outside. What keeps you going, and how do you motivate others to keep going?
I say thank you. So criticism, I mean, you're going to get it regardless. One of the stances that I personally like to take is that I want to say thank you, but also how can we encourage this conversation? Most times, and I might be a little exaggerating, but 9 times out of 10, people that come with criticism it's because of there's lack of communication, lack of transparency, or a misunderstanding. So if we can kind of take a breath and figure out where is that energy coming from, we can solve a lot more versus being so reactive. And honestly, I love those conversations, because the criticism that I've received, more so for Black Businesses Matter, like why should Black businesses matter now, or shouldn't all businesses matter? Or honestly, in full disclosure, even in the Black community, why are we focusing on it now? Weren't Black businesses important before COVID? And the answer is absolutely yes. You're right. We can't ignore the numbers. So we want to make sure that we're doing better and continuing to do better. And having these conversations really open up the opportunity for us to learn more. So one of the things that I've personally learned is I need to have more patience. And it's not a strong suit that I have. And when I was starting to meet some of these Black businesses that I never met, most of them before, almost all of them, it was really an opportunity for me to check myself. So I couldn't name 10 Black businesses before I started doing Black Businesses Matter. Someone said, name 10 Black businesses that are not in the food industry. Go. And it was embarrassing that I couldn't name that. And working with the Indy Black Chamber to identify more businesses, seeing some of these directories that are being created, it's just left a lot of opportunity to do better. So some of that criticism, I think if you can take it from a positive lens, as Bob said, but also give ourselves grace. So when I give myself grace, I give others grace. And it's just an opportunity for us to break down those walls of understanding, and then we can all do better. And there's usually some good that comes out of that critical thought, or some of that criticism, so to speak.
Thank you.
Well, I'm the baby of 6, and I don't. So being a baby of a family, you don't deal with criticism well because you're the cherished final, and you get everything you want, right?
As an only child, I'm perfect, right?
A friend of mine who passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, she had this saying, which I firmly believe: it's not about you. Even compliments aren't necessarily about you, but criticism isn't always about you. To hear what's behind that, to be aware of it. I'm honored, I'm fortunate, as I sit before those of you who are on this call. I know so many of you from current lives, from former lives, and I know you're good people. I was reminded by a colleague of mine an expression which I think you'll all get, and I'm going to share this very 20-second poem with you. We the willing, led by the unknowing, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. We have done so much for so long with so little that now we're qualified to do anything with nothing. So as we think about what we're trying to accomplish, we have to recognize that we have to. There are others. If someone's criticizing me, I'll turn and say, what do you recommend? What do you recommend? I don't claim it. My wife, my kids criticize me all the time. So makes me a stronger dad and husband, usually. But I think it's not about us. It's about what is concerning someone else. And criticism sometimes operates from a position of discomfort, and we have to operate from a position of strength. And it takes reminders. I know some people on this call are unemployed and are looking for work. And how do we surround ourselves with our own personal board of directors as we think about that? As you shared, I teach a butler, and so I have 2 classes. One's a professional interviewing, networking class, career development. And I talk about this personal board of directors. Who's your personal board of directors? Who's going to feed you and motivate you? And I think we all need those people. And invite someone. Will you be on my personal board of directors? And I think it's an honor, and I would be honored to have any of you on mine. So thank you.
Thank you both so much. We really appreciate it. We are at our time, and I think we could talk so much longer. Bob, we have a request for the poem. So, if you could send that our way, we will put that in the chat. And we will have another one of these in early September. Date coming soon. It will be on communications around cybersecurity and information security, which has always been important, and we've worked on it for years. And at the same time, now that we're all working remotely, or a lot of us are, and working from all over the place, it is more important than ever. And how you change behavior around those things and keep everything safe and secure is extremely important. And there's an art and a science to it. So we'll look forward to talking about that. Thank you, Tamara and Bob, so much for your time, your expertise, and all your energy that you put toward making our community better. We are extremely grateful.